Today is Saturday. This is the moment of great catastrophe within the gospel story, within the entire story of Scripture. Every good story that we love has this moment of the story, where everything we love about the story metaphorically goes to the grave. You think about your favorite novel, think about your favorite film, and I guarantee there is that catastrophe moment. That moment when the entire story that you have fallen in love with seems to be lost. Well, John 19 tells us that moment of the Bible story. Let me read it for us. So they took the body of Jesus and bound it in linen cloths with spices, as is the burial custom of the Jews. Now in the place where he was crucified there was a garden, and in the garden a new tomb in which no one had ever been laid. So because of the Jewish day of preparation, since the tomb was close at hand, they laid Jesus there. Jesus has been buried. But this, of course, is only setting the stage of the ultimate triumph of happy ending. All hope seemingly lost, but then in the climactic moment of the story, hope is vindicated. At least that's how we like to imagine things. But the rise of the secular age has given way to a different genre of storytelling. More and more, the dark, gritty, realistic stories that challenge the happily ever after motif are becoming popular. Stories where bad guys actually win in the end, where evil actually triumphs over good. The stories we are telling these days tend to be honest with the tragic realities rather than indulge wishful thinking. And this is all a reflection of the philosophy of our day. Secular philosophers will tell you that these classic stories of hope triumphing in the end are nothing more than Darwinian coping mechanism to distract ourselves from the truer, depressing realities of the real world. That hope is an illusion. There are no happy endings. There is no last-minute, surprising triumph coming to save the day. Sure, life has its moments of goodness. Sure, it has its fleeting victories, but the overall trajectory of life and even existence is the irreversible march toward our own grave, and eventually the extinction of the universe will be utterly meaningless and forgotten. You can call that depressing if you want, but it seems to be the prevailing reality. Can you argue with it as you look around at the state of things? And the secular mindset tells us that if we would actually accept this dangerous idea and come to grips with reality, then we would be better off. Meaning, free yourself from the vain imaginations of hope, from the religious fantasies that we tend to believe. Give up the dream of escape into the happily ever after, and then you can start making the best of things here and now before the here and now becomes extinct. And I think if we are completely honest with ourselves, that actually does seem like a more honest assessment of things. Is hope an illusion? Is happily ever after only something we tell ourselves as a coping mechanism from what we really know to be true? Honestly, it seems like that may be the case. And it's on this Saturday, what we call Holy Saturday, with Jesus cold and lifeless in the grave, where the dilemma of hope presses in on every single one of us. We take the resurrection for granted, but try your best to set it aside for a moment. Nobody expected the resurrection to take place, and so on Saturday, it's all over. The gospel's catastrophe moment is greater than any other story's catastrophe because this one is irreversible. We are used to a story being redeemed just in the nick of time. Just when all hope seems lost, something happens where the day is saved. But death is beyond redemption. The story was not saved in the nick of time. Time has run out. Jesus is dead. It's over. And if Jesus is dead, then all hope and all promise is dead with him. You see, the uniqueness of Jesus makes his death a unique problem. Jesus was not just a prophet, a teacher, an example, or anything like that. If he were, then his death would pose no problem at all. If he were a teacher, his teachings could live on after him. If he were just an example, his example could live on for the world to see. If he were just establishing another religion, then there is no reason why that religion couldn't live on past his death. In fact, one could make the case that his dramatic martyrdom would even benefit his religion. But that's not an option for Jesus. The claims of Jesus are just too significant to survive his death. Jesus didn't offer salvation in his religion. He offered salvation in himself. He did not claim to know the way to God. He claimed to be your God. So everything he offers, everything he promises, everything he says, everything he does is fully bound up in him. And that's why death is a unique problem for Jesus. When he dies, everything dies with him. And so on Saturday, the world is faced with the dilemma. Which is truer? The way things seem to be, or the way we want things to be? Which is truer? The news that we watch, or the stories that we tell? Obviously, on Saturday, it would seem the former. It would seem that we must all give in to the gritty secularist dogma and accept that hope is wishful thinking. For how could a grave possibly end in any other way? Perhaps this is where you find yourself right now, especially during an unprecedented time of despair, uncertainty, and yes, hopelessness. Perhaps you've given up on hope. Perhaps you have laid down your childish imaginations of happily ever after. Perhaps you view Saturday of Holy Week as the only true day of that week. If that's you, then to quote S.M. Lockridge, the powerful African-American preacher who with that powerful African-American cadence and inflection so famously said, Sunday's coming. Sunday's coming. Would you join us tomorrow at 10 a.m. where we will brazenly mock Saturday with the truer news of Easter Sunday?